Are you always coming up with ideas? Do you marvel at successful business owners? Do you hate being told what to do? Ever take things apart just to see how they work? Are you a dreamer? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Pro Tapes and Specialties is the world leader in tape manufacturing and specialty conversion with over 40 years of experience. In addition to our pro brand of high-quality specialty adhesive tapes, we provide contract converting services that help improve your profitability, streamline your supply chain, and reduce inventory cost. We offer the most complete range of converting capabilities in the industry, such as cloth tape, double-coated tape, specialty tape, paper tape, masking tape,
vinyl tape, carton sealing tape, adhesive transfer tape, duct tape, foam tape, electrical tape, filament tape, foil tape, reflective tape.
And the tape just keeps on rolling. Visit us online today at www.protapes.com or call us at 800-345-0234. Pro Tapes, it's just how we roll.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Entrepreneurial Enclave, Life's Coming Attraction. I am your host, Kevin Wortham. Listen, after you hear about this wonderful young lady, Kim, and all of our conversations, I want you to follow us on YouTube, the Entrepreneurial Enclave. I want you to like us on Instagram at the Entrepreneurial Enclave. We are doing great things. And then also, when we go to drop this episode, we want you to share this episode with your friends. I want you to have active engagement with us. I want you to consider becoming a sponsor because the work that we do here is going to be also impactful for the community. All right, Kim, having said that, I just want to welcome you to the platform. Kim, welcome to the platform. How are you, my sister?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, so I'm giving another shout out to my dear friend, Kevin. He thought so much. Yes, he thought so much of you. He says this would be another wonderful young lady to have on the podcast. So here you are. I've got you on the podcast. Are you okay? Because I'm hearing ambulances in the background or ambulances.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh,
This is Washington, D.C. at its finest.
Okay.
It's all day and night.
Got you. So now, what company do you have?
So, first of all, I thank you again.
Yes.
I am Kimberly Harris. I am the CEO and co-founder of a wonderful organization that is rooted here in Washington, D.C., called Women's HQ.
Women's HQ, yes.
Women's HQ stands for Women's Headquarters.
Yes.
And we are a nonprofit organization that services women of color here in the Washington, D.C. homeless shelter system that have been impacted by domestic violence or sexual assault.
Yes.
Our organization is geared towards survivorship, bridging the victim from trauma to triumph. We do that in a sensitive and a very narrated way. As Washington, D.C., during COVID, had a tremendous amount of reports that were being given through the National Domestic Hotline, Violence Hotline Center. We were told that women were calling during COVID in numbers of 700 per day, 7 days a week, just to get to safe space, which is one bed in one local shelter, and they were being turned away every moment of every day. When we heard those alarming numbers, we knew we had a problem. We had a problem bigger than what we realized prior to COVID. We knew that we had these issues in and around the DMV area, but we didn't know it was at this level. And of course, COVID brought out so much of it because of the fact that we were in the house.
Yes.
There was nowhere to go.
Yes.
We were, social distancing, and there were so many things that impacted the victim from separating from their abuser.
Yes.
So, it was just alarming. And the Domestic Violence Hotline just released another statistic report the first week in October of this year. They're now, cross gender. We're talking men and women now that are calling the hotline for some kind of relief, some kind of support, and they're saying like they're getting calls from like 20 people a minute.
What?
And let me say that again. I will send you this report. I was almost in tears when I heard this. 20 people every minute.
Wow.
Of every day. Which, if you do your calculation, you would come up with about 1 million people per year.
Yes.
And that, to me, I don't know about anybody else, but that to me says we have a serious, serious problem in the U.S. here. We need to do a lot more than what we're doing, and this brings me to why I began Women's HQ. Being a survivor myself, I'm a domestic violence survivor myself.
Yes.
There were a lot of teachings during my process from trauma to triumph.
Yes.
Just a little bit about my background. I am from Pittsburgh, as Kevin Smith is. I'm from Pittsburgh, born and raised.
Which part of Pittsburgh?
Kevin and I went to the. I was born in Garfield Heights.
Okay.
I'm a project girl.
Wow.
And proud of it.
Wow.
And proud of it. And
Wow.
proud of it. Like, we talk about, coming from a space where, we didn't know we were indigenous people. We didn't know we were indigenous people. We
Yes.
came from a society where people worked hard, they respected each other, they were a community. We had a community when we grew up.
Yes.
My father served on Pittsburgh Police Department for like 30 plus years.
Wow.
My mother was a healthcare worker at St. Margaret's Hospital for 20 plus years.
Yes.
And, just two hardworking parents. And, unfortunately, my father passed when I was 5 years old. But my mom was the backbone.
Yes.
4 boys and 2 girls.
Yes.
And my mother was really the pistol of the family.
Yes.
My mother was the backbone of the family. And, we lived in project housing, but we didn't know we were living in project housing. We thought we were rich.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, we thought we were rich.
Yes.
We didn't know that it was labeled as project, public housing.
Yes.
We thought, we were in a brick townhouse. That's what we were in.
Yeah.
And it was a 3-level brick townhome, okay?
Yeah.
And you went to school, you had clothes on
Yes.
your back, clean clothes every day. You had food in your stomach, and, you had a mama and daddy that cared about you,
Yes. Yes.
And we had uncles and aunties that lived right around the corner. Some lived next door to us,
Yes.
And, everybody looked out for everybody in the community.
Yes.
It's not that way anymore. So, coming from those humble beginnings is what helped me, during my down moment, my darkest moments in my life.
Yes.
I drew off of the strength that I knew that my mother and father, instilled in me.
Yes.
So, I came to Washington, D.C. when I was 19 years old.
Yes.
I began working for the federal government.
Okay.
And, it was DOJ. Started working for Department of Justice at 19 years old, which was exciting, right? Because,
Yes.
I was a babe out of the woods. I was from Pittsburgh. Who
Yes.
knew, right? I was in the big city. Washington,
Yeah.
D.C. was it was a totally different phase down here, right?
Absolutely.
Totally different vibe.
Absolutely.
Totally different vibe. So, I came here and I learned lots, and I used to keep my mouth shut, my eyes and ears open like my mama used to tell me to.
Yes.
And once I got here, this was a different city. It was a different city when I was used to. Washington, D.C., although it offered a lot, there was a lot of dangerous things here.
Oh, yes.
And I quickly learned how to curate relationships. I quickly learned how to navigate spaces that I was, that I was blessed to have opportunity to be in.
Yes.
And and this is unfortunately where I learned how to, advocate for myself after being labeled a survivor of domestic violence.
Yes. Now,
You know,
Kim, can I stop you for a second?
sure.
So now that you're talking, I first hear the Pittsburgh accent. It's clear now.
Yes.
I hear it now. And thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Now, when you became a survivor of domestic violence, were there any red flags prior to that something could jump off? Or just all of a sudden?
No, there was.
Okay.
When we're young, we're impressionable, right?
Yes.
Again, I came from a family that was honest. My father was a police officer. I would, a police officer's daughter.
Yes.
I worked for DOJ. I would never dreamed in a million years that I wouldn't heed the red signs of, or the red flags of
Yes.
abuse.
Yes.
But, I want to tell your audience, abuse is a cycle, and it's not just episodic. It's a cycle.
Got you.
It's not something that you say, oh, he said something today or she said something today that I thought about, but I didn't think about because it was the first time it happened. And I'm pretty sure that person was just stressed or there was a situation that was unbeknown to me. So I let it go.
Yes.
Then it festers. Like abuse is not one of those things that come upon you like boom.
Gotcha.
Abusers are gradually, really, really calculated people.
Got you.
They do it over a time.
Got you.
Mm-hmm. They wheel you in. It's the honeymoon phase when you're first into it, and then it moves from the honeymoon phase to a little confusement of who am I, where am I, what am I in your life?
Yes.
And then when you don't get those answers to those questions met, it festers even at a higher level where you're now being verbally attacked publicly. And then you still don't think much of it because people say harsh things in the heat of the moment.
Yes.
All the time, right? And you say to yourself, well, I know this person loves me. I just think this person's stressed. There's different things that happen in our lives that, will bring upon stressful moments.
Yes.
And we say things out of turn before thinking. But then you say, okay, that now moves into verbal, then nonverbal, then physical, to a point where it's like full-blown domestic or sexual assault.
Wow.
And, it moves. So
let me stop you, Kim. While you're going through these periods, right?
Right.
Is the person who's being abused, are they reaching out or they can't reach out, or the abuser has created so much fear that they dare not reach out? Because I want you to unpack that for me as well. What does that look like? Like when you've got this lull where there's no abuse going on, do you think everything's okay? Or that there's another episode coming and you should be reaching out to someone for help or for support? And then I guess the other part is, can other folks see perhaps what you don't see, and are you willing to take advice from the person who sees what you don't see?
Okay, let me pack that in two different ways.
Yes.
Unpack that in two different ways. So the first part of that is you're absolutely correct. There is, again, there's a cycle, but there's also what we call, as survivors, there's also there's categories of abuse.
Okay.
That people don't know. Like you could be physically abused, you can be mentally abused, you can be financially abused, you can be sexually abused. I mean, there's a list of abuse that you may not experience all of it. You may just experience one of it. Let me tell you how the impact can go for some women. Some women can be in a financial abusive relationship.
Yes.
A verbal abusive relationship. Like every month you pay your bills, right?
Yes.
okay, you're working, your husband's working, and you're never seeing where the money's going. You don't even know where the bank accounts are held. You don't have any control of the financials in your home.
Got you.
But when you ask at the kitchen table, you ask your husband or your wife, whoever your abuser is, hon, can you let me in? Am I on the account? Does something happen? Like, what am I to do? Who do I turn to? What bank is our investments, that we're, I'm getting paid and you're getting paid. They're going to direct deposits. Like, where's our money jointly going into?
Yes.
And that for an abuser that is calculated at what he or she is doing, flicks them off
Got
to
you.
a point now where they're like, don't you ever ask me what I'm doing with our money.
Yes.
You're in a home, right? You have shelter, you have food, why do you need to know these things? So that's your red flag. That's
Okay.
what financial abuse may look like.
Got you.
Then it may spin off to a verbal abuse situation where now they're like, you're stupid, you're dumb, I wouldn't put my money, my hard-earned money, because everything for the abuser is about the abuser. It's never about the victim.
Yes.
Always remember that. So we go into this, I wouldn't turn our financials over to you anyway because you're too stupid to maintain.
Yes.
And you're like, well, I'm not stupid to work and make a living for every 2 weeks and,
Yes.
and you be a contributor to this household. So why should I not know, where my money, my hard-earned money is going into?
Yes.
And then that's the shield, right? That's the threats become increasingly worse and worse.
Yes.
Because now, the abuser's like, you're asking too many questions. Now it's like you're testing them.
Yes.
You're sticking up for yourself. You're talking back to me. You're doing the things that I don't like. So now I'm going to have to put you in check. So that's the sign. Those are the red flags a victim should look for.
Got you.
In a relationship, it shouldn't be one-sided. It shouldn't be only one of you that knows all about the financials. It should be a collective effort, especially if you're a contributor.
Yes.
Then you move into, that's just one example. And then you move into the physical part of the abuse, of course, is self-obvious. Like, nobody has the right to put their hands on you.
Yes.
Nobody has the right to threaten you and threaten your life and that of your children. Nobody has the right to do that. One of the signs, I have lived experience with this. And one of the signs of physical abuse that I totally overlooked is when the abuser begins the abuse physically. And that is when they start grabbing you by the arm when you're in the midst of an argument or a dispute. It doesn't really have to be escalated to a 10, but it's to them, it's like they don't have the control that they want over you.
Got you.
And now you're talking back to them, and now you're making them look bad, and now this has to be dealt with.
Got you.
So, that's when, an abuser could start snatching you up by the arm and saying, don't you dare embarrass me like that again. Those are the first signs of abuse. That's when you're dealing with someone who has tendencies to be abusive.
Yes.
And when that begins, then you should begin looking for an escape route. Because I'm telling you, too many women sit and they apologize for the man and his behavior.
Yes.
They apologize for they think women are the nurturers, right? We think that, we stepped out of bounds. We did something to make him mad. We poked the bear.
Yes.
In essence, you're not poking the bear. You're just basically saying, you don't have the right to hit me. You don't have the right to swear at me. You don't have the right to disrespect me. You don't have the right to conceal, joint accounts. All these things are what brings red flags. Like, quickly, you cannot sit and try to understand an abuser's mind. You cannot You cannot calculate it. You cannot just say, oh, well, he's just having a bad day. We all have bad days. You know, we all have bad days. That still doesn't give somebody a right to curse you out, to call you out of your name, to publicly humiliate you, to grab you physically, slam you against the wall because he or she had a bad day.
Yes. Now,
It's unacceptable.
You just mentioned he or she. Now, so you're
Right.
telling me now that as the result of the pandemic or coming out of it, you're getting more people that are men that are calling as well?
Yeah. We got a high volume of LGBTQ.
Okay.
We have transgender. We have transgender abuse amongst that community is escalated twice as much as it was.
Now, Kim, let me stop you again. Let me slow down. Let me slow down, or let me have you slow down. So currently, your not-for-profit agency, you handle what type of people? Typically women?
We handle women in homeless shelters, DV shelters they call them, domestic violence shelters.
Got you.
In and around the DMV. But we do get calls from the National Domestic Violence Hotline to service transgender,
Okay.
to now service sex trafficking victims, which is another problem within itself.
But going to the LGBTQ community, right?
Right.
Are you trying to help support those persons if they call and need help? And then with the transgender, are you working in collaboration with other agencies to help them find help and support?
Right.
Because DC is steep with the LGBT community.
Right.
Wow.
And violence is violence, right?
Yes.
Whether it's towards a man, woman, or child. What we found out at Women's HQ is that we have a unfold of all communities coming at us now.
Yes.
And this is why we have to remain open and very transparent on the message. Violence is violence. And there's not enough of us in this space, nonprofit space, doing the work. We're the boots on the ground. We tell the government all the time, we're the boots on the ground. We know where the problems are. We deal with the victims every day. We know what the need base is. And unfortunately, it's violence is not just against women, it's against men too.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we get calls just because, we service women of color. We have to now be open and flexible to all communities of people. So our work was designed to help women of color in shelter spaces. But guess what? Those shelter spaces are now being occupied by transgender also. Because there's not enough space to slot everybody according to how they identify.
Wow. Now let me ask this question, Kim, because all of this is so informative, but how did we get here? Like, why is everybody walking around like super mad? How did we get here?
We got here by generational default. And let me explain myself on that.
Okay.
Generational default of when our mothers and their mothers, there were abusive situations for decades ago.
Yes.
And, with our parents and their parents and their parents, you didn't take your personal business that was internally going on in your home outside of that home.
Yes.
You were in big trouble.
Yes.
Society was different back then. Society didn't accept what we're accepting today.
Yes.
They weren't dealing with, transgender communities. They weren't dealing with the LGBTQ.
Yes.
All that was on a down low basis. It was still existing, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But you didn't talk about those things. How dare you bring those things into my house? Like, you don't liberate yourself enough to open up and say, this is who I am, what I am, and this is how I identify.
Mm-hmm.
So now society is changing. We're more liberal. We're more open.
Yes.
We're more accepting of who people really are.
Yes.
And that's what you see. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing people come out of the closet, that have been hemmed up so long in there, even identifying as full woman, but in an abusive situation, we're now coming out and saying we need help.
Yes.
Everybody's now coming out and saying, but this is who we are. We've been dealing with this long enough. I want to help myself. I want to save my life. No matter if I'm a woman or who I identify as, I want to save my life.
Yes.
So that was the push.
Wow.
During COVID and the generational, going back generations back, they didn't deal with a lot of what society is dealing with today.
Yes.
And again, the other part to that, and the reason why it's so explosive now and overwhelming the people, is because we had community. When we said we lived amongst a community, we had a community.
Yes.
People knew one another. My father walked a beat. He was never in a squad car. My father walked a beat for 30-something years, station number 2 on the Hill District in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
My daddy walked.
I probably walked past your father a couple of days.
You probably did. And, now, my father walked, and in those 30-something years of service, he pulled his weapon, his on-duty weapon, one time.
Wow.
One time.
Wow.
Because you know why?
He knew the people.
He knew the people.
Yes.
He knew whose child belonged to whom.
Yes.
What home they lived in.
Yes.
What school they attended.
Yes.
He knew their mother. He knew their father. He knew their aunties and uncles. He knew the whole nucleus family that child belonged to.
Yes.
So you couldn't do wrong. Because if Mr. Harris saw you taking a nickel piece of candy at Miss Tilly's, corner store,
yes,
you was going to get it from 3 people before you got home to your mother and father.
Yes.
And see, now we are in a translucent state where we ain't got communities no more. Don't nobody know nobody.
Yeah.
And don't want to know nobody.
Yes.
Because everybody is so there's this transient people coming in and out of our communities now. We don't even get a chance to know our neighbors.
Yes.
And that's what the problem is. So when you have that kind of open and that kind of separation within your community, now you're in trouble because anything can penetrate your community.
Yes.
And you don't know what's going on. That's why sex trafficking is so high. But sex trafficking, sex traffickers are operating right in your backyard. You wouldn't even know what a sex trafficker looks like.
Got you.
You wouldn't even know a victim of sex trafficking unless they came up to you and said, I need help.
Yes.
Like, these are the things that we have now just relinquished and let go. Nobody wants to know what's going on around them no more. Nobody wants to know nothing. All people want to do is do their thing, go to work, come home, or whatever they're into, shut their door, and they're done.
Now, Kim, your agency, are you functioning 7 days a week?
We are functioning 7 days a week.
Yes.
I am, my phone stays ringing around the clock.
Yes.
We are, we're on the list for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So we get calls constantly of, that agency calls us to just figure out, like, do you know of any other shelters we can put them at? Do you know of any other, safe spaces they can go to? And once they get to those safe spaces, do you know of any other services or public benefit services they can apply for? Like, I get these calls all day.
Now
7 days a week.
Let me ask this question, because you just brought up, in my mind, you just brought up a very interesting scenario. Here we go. Woman A, we're going to call her Ann, right? Ann is in an abusive relationship. When she calls you and you find placement or a safe space for her, in your mind, what are you thinking? That she's going to go back to the abuser in 30 days? Or you think she's finally got it and she's going to be here and she wants a change of life, and what does that look like, and how does the agency go to help her from that point?
So we take this in stages.
Yes.
First of all, when anyone comes to you from abuse, they're in trauma.
Yes.
That's the first thing you have to identify. They're in serious trauma.
Yes.
Trauma looks different and it impacts people in different ways.
Yes.
So you don't know what you're dealing with until you deal with it.
Got you.
But mostly the people we get from the National Domestic Violence Hotline are people who have been bridged over to us for services. Now, we're not clinical professionals here. You know, as I am educated woman, I am very, very, very informative to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, who bridges these women over to us, and we work in contingents of each other. We
Yes.
work together.
Yes.
So I always have to keep in contact with our local, DOJ officers, that's working, in contingency with, safe spaces here because of the uptick in sex trafficking victims that we're getting. So that's one thing. And then we get the regular, domestic violence referrals, but we're basically finding them a bed just to get there and
Okay.
get settled and get safe away from the abuser.
But when you're finding them a bed, what does that look like? Like you're here for 72 hours, you're here for a week, or suppose they get there and they stay for 24 hours and they say, I want to go back to the abuser. What do you say? Do you have any legal rights to hold that person for your own protection? Wow.
No, you don't. First of all, shelter space is limited.
Gotcha.
Here in Washington, there's a lot of people in need. So first of all, you may not go to a DV shelter. You may be put into a regular homeless shelter.
Wow. Okay.
These shelter spaces are like, they're like, money.
Yeah.
Like they're hard to come by here in Washington, especially during COVID.
Got you.
And if you do get lucky enough, your stay may look like, 40. Well, I don't know of any shelter here locally that keeps them less than a day, but you might look at a couple weeks, you might look at a month, you might look at a couple months. It all depends on the availability of that shelter. Shelter spaces in Washington, D.C. really don't like to keep, home. Now, this is the tricky part, and follow me when I say this. If you're in a homeless situation where you just need shelter, your stay might be limited to 30 days.
Yes.
But if you're in a detailed domestic violence or sex trafficking, if you're in a sex trafficking situation, those are curated, spaces that are secure spaces for those particular groups of individuals.
Gotcha.
And they have a longer stay than if they were just put in regular homeless shelters. That's why we advocate so hard, so loud, not to put these women in with a community of just homeless people, because it's a different set of circumstances here.
Yes.
These people are running for their lives. If their abuser finds them, locates them in these shelter spaces, 9 out of 10, you're talking about, if your abuser says he's going to kill you, 9 out of 10 times, he's going to kill you.
But
he's going to kill you.
But so you're in this homeless safe space, right? I mean, you're in this safe space, right? Are you going to work? Are you still going to work? What happens to your own personal income if you are working at that point in time? Are you allowed to go to work, and do they provide like security that now that your abuser can't find you, he mightn't show up at work?
But that's not the responsibility of the shelter. Shelter
Gotcha.
Let's get this clear. Shelter space in this area of Washington, D.C. is only in existence to house people for short-term housing needs. They are not set up, they are not designed for counseling, for all these other set of circumstances, public, how do you apply for public benefits? I mean, they can give you direction and information on that, but ultimately, like if you're in a working situation, how you get back and forth to work, how you do all these things that you need to do, how you even get back to work. Because a lot of the women that we deal with have been under abuse for so long, they
Yes.
miss so many days of work, they don't even have jobs. They get fired.
Wow.
So like when they're in these shelters, you're hitting rock bottom. Like you're at the bottom here.
Yes.
And you are looking for a way, what is my next step? Like, what do I do? The
Got you.
first thing to do is have someone clinically deal with the trauma.
Yes.
The women are in safe spaces now. We like to get them immediately bridged over to a clinical professional, psychiatric doctors, psychologists, or a combination of psychovals. We like to get those done immediately, and we like to pass them off to therapists, or we like for them to attend group sessions of therapy just to get them started, get them into a circle of openness. And this is where Women's HQ comes in, because I'm gonna tell you something. Shelter spaces are overburdened and underfunded.
Yes.
The problem here is that even if they wanted to offer all services that had nothing to do with shelter stay, they couldn't, because they don't have the money to do it. That's why I began Women's HQ. Women's HQ has what we take the victim after they've been in shelter care for more than, say, three to 6 months. They've gotten bridged over to clinical support, psychological support. We then take them and we have what we call here 3-pillar programs. Our programs are basically broken down. In the beginning, when they're first introduced to Women's HQ, we have the health and wellness pillar. And that health and wellness, we do health assessments. We ask the women that we're servicing what do they feel they're ready for. We offer them art therapy. We offer them music therapies. We offer them dance therapies. We offer them, design fabrication. That first tier is not all about fun. That first tier is about opening up to your trauma,
Yes.
getting you in the direction where you need to go, because I got you engaged in something that can now start a communicative dialogue between the both of us.
Yes.
So my clinical professionals can get in there and figure out what it is they need to do going forward.
Yes.
And how they can, do they need to be on medication? Do they need to be, the psychoval, does it show that they need a combination of therapy and medical assistance?
Yes.
As far as, drugs. Do they need a combination of the drugs and the therapy? Do they just need the therapy? Is it therapeutic measures that we need to take here that are more advanced than some may need? Like, these are the processes that opens the woman up to move her along to the second tier of our program, which is career enhancement. Career enhancement gives them the opportunity of doing what they want to do. We come to them after they've opened, after they've started on working on their trauma. Now we're telling them, you're working on your trauma, now let's work for your triumph. Let's bring it together.
Yes.
Because you can't do anything when you're in trauma.
Very true.
Can't even think straight when you're in trauma. So now that we've opened them up, we got them into thinking about what they want to do next.
Yes.
So we say to them, we go to them, I'm not telling you what you should do, because people tell people all the time, indigenous people all the time, what they should do. But this is not telling them what they should do, it's asking them what they want to do. So this gives them an opportunity. Now that I've got temporary housing, I've gotten, psychological, support. Now Miss Kim got me into thinking about what I want to do with my future. So we actually partnered with LinkedIn DC.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. This is awesomeness. LinkedIn DC has offered us one-on-one coaching in a program that they developed for our women called Rock My Profile.
Yes.
This program is the first part of the career enhancement series that we introduce them to the LinkedIn platform. But we introduce it in a safe and secure way where they feel comfortable getting on, like, all of us, like you, I, everybody else that are professionals, subscribe to LinkedIn. We pay what, $70, $80 a month to network and do the things we want to do with other professionals in the circle. So these women are going to be able to now join in with the rest of the world, and they're going to be able to navigate that platform in their way. Do you want to, develop your resume on LinkedIn? We teach them how to do that. Or LinkedIn professionals teach them how to do that. Then, if you want to interview on LinkedIn, you can do that now, right?
Got you.
So we teach them how to do that. LinkedIn professionals teach them how to do that safely now, because we are curating a space of safety and security at every step of the way.
Yes.
Then we take them into, well, you're on LinkedIn. Let's network. Let's safely network with other professionals. What is your career choice? What is your idea of what your career would look like in the next 10 years? Yes. What is it that you want to do? Do you need, in that career choice, do you need to go back to school? Do you need to get a degree? Do you need to get certified in something in particular? Or do you just want to be an entrepreneur? Do you have the gifts and talents and everything that you think that, that in your mind you can create, how do we help do that? How do we help manufacture that? How do we help bring it to a platform where you can now sell your goods and become the entrepreneur you want?
What just came to my mind, you seem to be talking about women who are being abused. What about women who are being abused and they have kids? Is your agency able to help them as well?
Yeah, well, we stay in good standing with the professional sports teams in the area.
Gotcha.
They help us a lot.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that. They help us a lot. We're still bridging over that relationship.
Yes.
But we got some real awesome things coming for the kids too.
No, I got one for you. It just came to the tip of my head. Has there ever been a situation where you're working with a transgender LGBT community or just an abused man or woman, and have you ever sent them back home if they're originally not from DC? Have you ever said, like, you're from Jersey, why don't you go back to Jersey? And we've got some partners in Jersey that can help support you as you transition back to Jersey, and maybe they can find you a safe house or safe location. Have you ever done a situation like that?
That's not for Women's HQ.
Okay.
That's for the shelter space to decide. We don't have anything to do with that.
Gotcha.
They just bridge us, for services, for local services, and to get them back, into the job market or to get them back to work.
Okay.
We don't touch that. Housing is very scarce here in Washington, D.C. It's very expensive here in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know how the shelters work, but I don't think the shelters, from what I have witnessed, I don't think the shelters turn anybody away.
Gotcha.
If they have enough space. Gotcha. I don't think they're turning anybody away.
Got you. So now, one more time, Kim, the name of your organization and the services that you provide.
It's Women's HQ, and we're at www, because I know people want to read more about us. We're at www.womens, WOMENS, H is in Harry, Q is in quarter.org. And we have health and wellness services. We provide career enhancement services. And one of the proudest things that I've created and written was called the Work to Wealth program, which is financial management. And we curate that into once they get a livable wage job, we teach them how to manage, budget, and we also teach them how to invest.
Awesome. Now I want to go back to your story.
Okay.
once you realized that you were being abused and that there was some trauma, how did you begin the healing process? Did you have, and I'm going to mess this up, did you have like a mentor or someone who was facilitating that for you? Who said, Kim, we've got to get you out of this situation? Did you say that, or did someone seeing this said that to you?
I almost lost my life
Oh, wow. Okay.
to my abuser.
Yes.
That was the most wake up call I could have had.
Yes.
I had literally, I was on the ground bleeding and getting choked out. And there were, I would say, 60, and maybe even more, construction workers that were standing there as I was screaming for someone to call the police to save my life. They were actually standing there videotaping the attack.
Wait, hold up. Hold
It
up.
was,
You're being abused, you're being strangled, you're
oh,
being choked, and none of these
yes,
men would attempt to intervene.
no, they didn't intervene. They
Wow.
didn't attempt. They didn't intervene. And um, there was a gentleman walking his dog and his baby.
Yes.
This gentleman, I won't name him by name, but this
Yes.
gentleman and I are best friends to this day.
Yes.
He was coming around the corner. He heard the commotion. He saw how the construction workers were laughing. They were circling around. They had the camera phones out. And he ran up and he said to my abuser, stop hitting her. Like, my abuser was like 6'4", 260.
Wow.
So there was no, I fought. When I tell you I fought for dear life. I
Understood.
fought for dear life.
Understood.
And yeah, so this gentleman said, if you don't stop, I'm going to call the police. At this point, he spat on me, threw hot coffee in my face. He kicked me. I'm on the ground screaming. Like,
Yes.
I'm not a small girl, but I couldn't do nothing with all that,
Yeah.
you know? And so he called the police. Police came, 5th District came. And he said to them, this is awful. And he took videotape. He did videotape it, but he videotaped it for the right reason. Because he knew I would need it for court.
Yes.
And when the ambulance finally came, and got me off the ground, took me to the hospital, the doctor spoke to me about domestic violence. Until this day, like, I'm best friends with the doctors that serviced me that day, the people who helped me save my life
Yes.
through that whole process. I'm best friends with these people today. They support everything I'm doing in this organization. They've supported from day one. And I realized that I said to God, God, if you get me up off of this ground, you help me prosecute this person. I'll just say that.
Yes.
This person, if you navigate my space and show me the way of what I should do, how I get my life back together again, I will service you in every way possible. And what that looked like is, once I got in safe space, because I was in a homeless shelter myself for 2 years
Wow.
to save my life.
Wow.
So, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Yeah.
I'm very open about that. You can read it on my website. Like, I'm very open about my time in DV shelter space. That's why I know this so well.
Yes.
I know what happens in those spaces. I know what doesn't happen in those spaces. I know what these women need. And once I got into the space, once I got through my trauma, my psychiatrist and I sat down and she was like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do now? What do you want to do? I said, I want to go back to school. And she said, go back to school? What do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Catholic University of America.
Yes.
She was like, oh, okay. What do you want to take up there? I'm business minded. I'm very good at business. I have credit hours. I can transfer over. I told her the whole spiel, right? So she's like, okay. So I went to the Catholic University of America, put my application in at the, enrollment services,
Yes.
and I got accepted. And
Okay.
I stayed on the dean's list the whole time. And during the process, I was still in shelter care. And it was the nuns at Catholic University that saved my life.
Wow. So
They,
you were taking classes while you were still living in the homeless shelter.
I was thinking, yes, I was,
Wow.
and proud of it.
Wow. Good
And
for you.
I went in, I would talk to the nuns, not so much my professors, because my professors it was a little different relationship with professors,
Yes.
because they already have enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, I needed to really go. I went through mental health services on campus, and I told them my story. I told them what was going on with me, what I needed, how I needed it, and they were like, "Huh." So they bridged me over to the nun services. Like, the nuns were like the ones who, heard my story, switched me to Catholic diocese, and they gave me, help finding housing, permanent housing. They helped me do a lot. Although this was years ago, they helped in a major way. And I finished my degree. And each and every one of those nuns and nurses and doctors and everybody who helped me get through that period walked on that stage with me to get my degree.
Awesome. That's
Because it
all
was
right.
our degree.
Yes.
It wasn't just my degree.
Yes.
It was our degree.
Awesome. Now,
And
now,
and then I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask this question. What was, or give us an update as to your abuser? Once the cops came and arrested him, he goes to jail, he goes to court. What happens to him?
Yeah, we went to, so Fifth District Police Department came, and, he had fled by the time they got there. They took me to the hospital. The police came to the hospital room and asked me who he was, give me, his age, description and all that.
Yes.
So I was able to give him the address to where he was located and his job at the time.
Yes.
And they arrested him on his job. So we got to court. This is the other problem with the whole system of abuse. You get to court, right? Now, it's bad enough, like, you have to wait, because this is city court. So, the wait to get in to see a judge you're not going to get there in 24 hours. So they give you, when you first come in, they give you, you go to two hearings. The first hearing you go in is just for a temporary restraining order. And that restraining order gives you protection for up to 2 weeks, right? Then they send the police out to find your abuser and to arrest the abuser. So once the abuser is arrested and processed through the system, then they set a court date. Now he was released the same night, so he was able to get himself out. He was able to postpone to get out, and that's when I found out this wasn't his first rodeo with domestic violence, because he had done this to other women.
Wow.
So when you get to court, you find out a lot of things about a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Because it all comes out then, right?
But let me stop you, Kim. So he's released, but you're still in the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Now,
but he doesn't know. He doesn't know where I'm at.
Okay.
At that particular time, he doesn't know where I'm at.
At any point, is he trying to reach out to you? Is he trying to reconcile? Is he trying to be apologetic? What's
Well, he couldn't connect with me because he had smashed my cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah, in the attack, he took my phone and smashed it so I wouldn't call the police.
Yes.
So he had no idea where I was.
Got you.
And then, it wasn't that he wasn't trying to find me, but he didn't know where.
Got you.
And then it was, and see, what they do is they put you in the protective shelter. They bridge you over to, so here in Washington, D.C., unlike other major cities, we have what they call, because we're like a federal city kind of, so we're not a state.
Yeah.
So they have federal marshals on site at the courthouse.
Got you.
And I had worked for the court system for like over 20 years. So I was like, okay, I knew everybody. You know, I knew some of the people that still work there, even with the Marshal Service. And it's like, girl, what are you doing here? You know, and I was telling them, like, hey, this is my situation and this is what I'm going through. So they provided me protection during the
Okay.
whole court proceeding.
Okay.
And they walked in with my attorney, and he was with his attorney. But the most humiliating time is when you go into that courtroom, you're going for the permanent restraining order.
Yes.
It's humiliating because now you have to relive the whole incident over again.
Yes.
And you have to tell the judge why, you have to convince the court why you think that this person should be convicted, right? And this whole time, he's standing there with a smile on his face because he knew the system.
Yes.
This wasn't his first rodeo with abusing women.
Yes.
And so the judge basically, you know, all they do is there's like several hundred people standing in line, sitting behind you, listening to your trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a closed hearing.
Yes.
It's an open hearing. And you're sitting there and you are just like a mess. Because
Yes.
it's like you're reliving this whole thing. You haven't really even started dealing with your trauma. You're angry, you're mad, you're confused. Like, why aren't they doing more? Like, why isn't he being sentenced to jail?
Yes.
All I got was a 1 year, basically stay away order. That's what I got.
Wow.
And that's like a tap on the hand because he pleaded no contest. And no contest didn't mean he wasn't guilty. No contest just means he wasn't dealing with it.
Yeah.
Like, he had been here before. He knew the rules. DC, all they do is give you a 1 year protective order. And guess what? After that year expires, if he's never tried to contact you, if he's never came at you again, if he hasn't done anything wrong, you can't take him back in the court and say, I need to extend my protective order from him. Because the judge has no grounds to do that.
Wow. That's crazy.
So, like, either, you know, you move, most women, they move out of the city.
Yes.
And they move to, once they do get the help, from shelter space, they move into a different direction. But guess what? Like, DC has gotten so high now, you ain't moving nowhere unless you got some money.
Yeah.
And if you ain't got no money, and you ain't got nobody who, giving you a house, like, what do?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yes.
And this is the importance of Women's HQ to try to build the woman back up before that even happens. To get them to workable wages so that they can get out of trauma, go on to triumph, and continue on with their lives, no matter the violence. No matter how impactful the violence was, we are here to bridge women and put people back to work.
Yes.
And to work in a way where it's productive for them to continue raising their families, their children, and, to come into the life that they deserve.
Yes.
No, violence, in America today, I don't care, we just heard about this young rapper that got killed the other day. And it's like, I don't understand. People want to say, oh, it's mental health, mental health, mental health. It's not just mental health, guys. It has to change at the legislative level.
Okay.
It has to change at the legislative level because we're giving people too much open opportunity to be the kind of abusers they are today. January 6th wouldn't have happened if we had to put measures in place of protection.
Yes.
Violence against young people are dying every day here in Washington, D.C. of gun violence.
Yes.
Gun violence, every single day. Senator Cory Booker and I are very good friends, and because Senator Cory Booker has worked hard and is still working hard on the boyfriend loophole legislation, and that legislation is being developed to try to keep an abuser of domestic violence or sexual assault even, once they've been convicted, they cannot register for a weapon. They cannot register to carry. And that is the protection of the victim. Because 9 out of 10 abusers come back and they say to you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And you know what? You better believe it.
Yeah.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
And when you're, after that protective order expires, what protections do you have?
None.
None.
Yeah.
None. None. So, we're studying, I'm studying, talking to people in Congress and talking to, I had a great experience just about in about 3 weeks now. I attended the White House conference on food hunger and nutrition. I met the president, President Biden, and we had conversation. I came to the White House. We had continued conversation about how all that impacts women of color who are residing in these DV shelters and what, extra trauma of not having food, nutrition, and shelter brings to a person that has experienced domestic violence.
Yeah, yeah.
And, it's like, wow. Because, people don't know this, but President Biden, during his time in Congress, he's the one that wrote and promoted the Violence Against Women's Act.
Okay.
And he's the one, my God, he was the one that gets into office and saves the legislation by refunding because it was due to expire. After President Trump had gotten out of office, it was due to expire. And the Republicans in the House, they were like, let it expire. It's no good to us anyway. No, it's good to us, though. It's good to us because it helps us get the kind of grant money and funding we need to have a women's HQ exist.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm constantly on the hill. I'm constantly, keeping partnerships with, big organizations like LinkedIn and, Good 360 USA. We partner with, we're now getting ready to partner with Catholic University, my alma mater. We have these, I can go on and on, but I don't want to say too much right now.
Understood.
But we have oh my God, 2023 is going to be amazing. We have, because at every opportunity of every tier of every section of our programming I told you about, women are that are going to be attending these programs are going to make, products like art therapy. They're going to make art products. In design fabrication, they're going to make clothing. And, in financial management, they'll learn how to, be the entrepreneur they want to be. But the real exciting part about it is that we are going to allow them, once they cut a record in music therapy, we're going to allow them to sell these products and get royalties off of and start making money. So it's not just about going through a program and getting a certificate and walking across the stage and say, hey, Ms. Kim, I made it. At the end of that, you're going to be a totally different person. You're going to be a productive person, and you're going to be a more informed person to carry your life out in trauma and from trauma to trauma.
Kim, I am so sorry that you had to go through that. I just thank you for being, wow. What do I call you beside a survivor? What else do I call you?
You know what? The women I help out with, they say, Miss Kim, you're our angel.
Angel, okay.
And
okay.
I said to them, I said, well, you know what? I had an angel too.
Yes.
So they call me Miss Kim the Angel.
Miss Kim the Angel.
And then some people just call me plain Miss Kim.
Gotcha.
But I have a lot of good things going on at Women's HQ. I work hard. I work hard around the clock.
Yes.
I put a lot of passion into this. I put a lot of love into this. I put a lot of care into this. And grant that, everybody's not about it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not about, turning this into an advocacy issue. But, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep women informed. I have a podcast I do on YouTube called the Survivor Coffee Circle. And I would love for you to come and share your story with us of how you got to where you got to. Since I've done this, you better at podcasting than I ever could be. But I've had the first person that came to my platform was Congressman Jim McGovern from the 2nd District out of Boston, and he is the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. And he is awesome. He came to the platform not to talk about what he does in his day to day. He came to the platform to talk about that dreadful day on January 6th when he came face to face with attackers that wanted to kill every single Democratic congressperson that was sitting in that chamber that day.
Wow.
And you know what it did? It solidified the fact that any one of us, don't matter how much money you make, how educated you are, who you are, what the color of your skin is, who you identify as, every single red-blooded American can experience violence.
Absolutely. Hey, Kim.
So that
was
the message.
Let's do this. Give us one more time, but before I ask you to do that, I'm going to ask you to send me your bio and your headshot, but
okay,
put in there how in your bio at the bottom how we can reach out to you and your podcast on YouTube, right? Because we want to, when we put this out, we want to make sure we get as many people as possible to support you and support your efforts, so that you can continue to be an angel for somebody, right? But I just want to thank you. So one more time with your agency, and certainly God bless you and the work that you continue to do. And although we didn't talk about the deep entrepreneurial experience, we do know that you crafted this business to be a help for so many. And for that, I say thank you. But one more time, Kim, the name of your agency.
It's Women, WOMEN, ''S, H as in Harry, Q as in quarter.
Yes. And how can
Women's HQ.
And how can people be in contact with you?
And our website is www.womenshq.org. And my email address is K as in Kimberly, Harris, HARRIS, @womenshq.org.
Awesome. Kim, continue the work that you do. It is needed. It is necessary.
You.
And let's you and I stay connected, please.
I will. And thank you for all you do. Thank you for bringing us to your platform and sharing us and our stories with so many. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So let's stay connected. Let's talk and text soon.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. Be well for now.
Okay,
right,
you
bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
That concludes another episode of The Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. We hope you found this episode informative and enlightening. If you have any questions or comments about any of our episodes, please call 609-731-9311 or email kevin@minding-our-business.com. We look forward to joining us for our next one. Until next time.